2, 3, and we're good.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for watching. This is a 2020 mock draft. My name is David. I am going to mock with my friends. Tom, how's it going, Tom?
Going good.
And Billy, how are you?
What's up, Dave?
All right, so today we are going to go through all 32 picks in the first round, and we are going to be picking the players that we think NFL teams should be selecting with their first round picks. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to be the Bengals. I'm selecting first overall. And with the first pick in the 2020 NFL draft, I will pick Joe Burrow out of Ohio State. So this should not surprise anyone. He was by far the best player in college football in 2020. I'm a Clemson Tigers fan, and he totally destroyed Clemson's top-ranked defense in the national title game. So I think that's pretty much a shoo-in that the Bengals are going to pick Joe Burrow. I have heard recently that they've been talking to him once a week, so it's not set in stone that they will pick Joe Burrow, but I think 95% chance that he will be the pick, and he would be the right pick for the Bengals.
I agree. No surprise there. I think the Bengals are going to pick Burrow. Ohio kid.
It makes sense. He was an Ohio State guy.
If the Bengals don't take him, the fan base would just not accept it. They, at this point, after what he did at LSU this season, they just absolutely have to take him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about. If they did not take him, who would they take instead? I guess if they fell in love with Tua, but some people say Tua is like a more talented quarterback, but with his injury stuff, that might be an issue. But we're gonna probably talk about Tua pretty soon coming up. With the second pick, that's gonna go to Tom. And who do you take for the Redskins?
Drafting for the Redskins, and I think you have to draft Chase Young here. He's one of those guys we talk about, the built-in-a-lab players. Remember Saquon Barkley? If you're building a running back in a lab, you'd end up with something like Saquon Barkley. If you're building a defensive end in a laboratory, I think you would end up something close to Chase Young. Big, fast, strong. I think he's the pick here. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Chase Young he was the best player in college football. If it's not a quarterback, he's definitely going to be the first pick after the quarterbacks. Washington could possibly take a quarterback, even though they did draft Haskins last year at 15 overall. I don't know, but I just think you don't pass on a talent like Chase Young. What do you think, Billy?
When you get a blue chip talent like Chase Young, I know the Redskins have put a lot of stock in their defensive line these past few years in the draft. But with a player like Chase Young, you just can't pass it up. You have to just bite the bullet and take him.
Yeah, I do like their pick last year in the first round. They got Montez Sweat, who's an extremely athletic pass rusher. But if you have him and Chase Young, and they have like Jonathan Allen on the defensive line from Alabama a couple of years ago. So as a Giants fan, I'm kind of rooting against them picking Chase Young because I don't want him sacking Daniel Jones like 5 times a season. But I could see that being the pick. I just think.
I don't think the Redskins are savvy enough to have a quarterback competition. Pick a quarterback, have him go up against Haskins, and have it work out fine. So I think you just pick the best player available.
That's a recipe for disaster if they bring in Tua, don't address any other positions. The Redskins are a mess to begin with, and it just wouldn't help.
All right. So who are you going with number 3 of the Lions, Bill?
So I fully expect this pick to be traded. I think either the Dolphins or the Chargers are looking to move up, but the Lions could trade this pick and still end up with their guy, and I say that's Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. He fits the need. Again, he's about as elite as you're going to get of a player in this draft, and in that NFC North, you need cornerbacks. So Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching the semifinal game as a Clemson fan, and I mean, I was looking at Chase Young, but I feel like Okuda stuck out more during that game than even Chase Young. And I was like, wow, the Giants get him, we'll have like a lockdown corner for 10 years. So um, Todd McShay said he's like the best cornerback prospect in over 5 years. So I think that would be a great pick for the Lions. They just traded Darius Slay as well. So I think that's a solid pick right there.
The Ohio State cornerbacks have been panning out quite well as of late. So
except when the Giants pick one, because we got Eli Apple like 5 years ago.
After that,
and yeah, we're the exception because we're bad. We have bad luck like the last 5 years. So
all right, hometown pick, Dave, Giants. I think we know who you're going with.
All right, so if you watched our video from yesterday, I'm big on Isaiah Simmons. I know that might be unpopular to some Giants fans. There's a lot of debate going on Giants Twitter over Isaiah Simmons or an offensive tackle. I think it has to be one or the other. I've said it before, but the only way we lose in the first round is if we go defensive tackle again. And Dave Gettleman loves his hog mollies. If he gets like Derek Brown or Kinlaw in the first round, I think that would be bad. But Isaiah Simmons is a home run pick, in my opinion. I think he's so talented. Part of me likes him more than Chase Young. And I know pass rusher is more valued as a position. It's more, important to a contending team. But Isaiah Simmons could just do so many things well. I compare him sort of like to Derwin James, except he's 239 pounds. And he could just play everywhere. Like Tyrann Mathieu last year for the Chiefs. He would line up like in the linebacker position. He'd guard guys out of the slot. He can blitz off the edge. He just has good football instincts. So I just want a special kind of player like that on the Giants, someone that can bring our defense back to respectability. So
yeah,
he's definitely my pick.
I'll play devil's advocate here. I don't like the pick of Simmons right here.
Good.
Just because I understand he's an elite football player, but you need guys who specialize at certain things when you're building a defense. And if you have a defensive coordinator who doesn't utilize that and just plugs him in at weak side linebacker, he's just going to be another run-of-the-mill NFL player. So
I think you made some good points. Yeah, I mean,
since he's great at everything, I would rather have a guy who's elite at one thing. Is what I'm saying. When you build a complete defense,
I do like the Blake Martinez signing for the Giants, though. He's not really a coverage guy, but it provides a good yin and yang if you got Simmons and Martinez on the field at the same time.
I love Martinez, like his kind of the way he would mesh with the Simmons, in my opinion, because Martinez is that tough guy in the middle that can handle the runs. If there's one fear with Simmons, like you said, Billy, he's not a true linebacker. If you just plug him in at outside linebacker or plug him in at weak side linebacker, he's not going to excel. But I feel like confident with Patrick Graham's sort of defense, the new defensive coordinator for the Giants. He wants to play a multiple sort of system. So if they use him in a way where he can play all over the place, depending on the matchups, trying to take away the strength of the other team, I think he can be like extremely valuable. If you just plug him in at one position and tell him to play weak side linebacker, he's definitely not worth a top 5 pick. I agree with that. If there's one fear with him, it's that he needs to add a little more strength, like playing against the run, maybe against NFL caliber talent. He might get pushed around a little bit, but I mean, I think the sky's the limit for him with his potential. I think Patrick Graham could use him in a way where, all right, the running backs are really killing us in the passing game. You got to guard like Chris Thompson out of the backfield. You can guard him. You need to guard Zach Ertz, who's killing us out of the slot. All right, put Simmons on him. If you need to blitz, you can put him off the edge, and I think he can do a little of everything. Yeah, if there's one fear with him, it's I think his strength and probably playing the run up the middle. So
what would be your ideal position for him to play then?
Honestly, he would be my starting middle linebacker, but in certain packages, like he can play safety. He played deep half safety really well, I think. He was able to pick off that pass from Justin Fields in the semifinal game. He was on the opposite hash mark. He ran to the other sideline picked off the pass at like a critical time in the game. And the Giants just haven't had a player that could do something like that in so long to make a big play at a big time. So
I do like the Derwin James comparison, though. A kind of hybrid player like that.
You know,
like you said, it all comes down to the team utilizing him like that.
You know what? I kind of see him as the best version of Sorensen on the Chiefs. You know how he would line up everywhere. He was all over the field, and he would screw up sometimes. He would get burned, but he would also make a bunch of plays. If you put him in that role with his athleticism, I think that he would. I think he would do better than if he was lining up kind of over the guard every play. You know?
Yeah. Sorensen made some big plays for the Chiefs in the playoffs. I remember him and Matthew, like having those safeties that you could just put like everywhere. I feel like that's so valuable in the NFL, and safety, in my opinion, is such like an undervalued position. So, all right. So for the fifth pick, Tom, you're on the clock.
Fifth pick, I'm picking for the Dolphins here, and despite the injuries, I'm going with Tua. I just think he's a generational arm talent. Like I don't know. Maybe the hip is going to scare some people away, but I can't let that guy go by if you're the Dolphins. I think they were gunning for him even before the season started, and I think you can't let him slip through your fingers. You have other needs at the Dolphins, obviously, but you do have 2 other first-round picks. So I think Tua is the move here.
So you'll go on the record saying you're not confident in Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen?
Yeah, well, what about Fitzmagic? I thought
that can be put on the record, yes. But the Dolphins have said they're in they've signed a couple free agents. They've understand that they're not going to win now. So, I mean, you know, if Tua doesn't even play next year, then they're still have him going forward.
I mean, as a Jet fan, I will say I'm a little scared of the Dolphins come 2021 if they get Tua and with 2 more first-round picks.
They had like the busiest free agency out of any team. They got Byron Jones, who I really wanted for the Giants. I was so big on him. And then they got Van Noy. They got a couple of like nice pieces to build around.
At least
they were playing well towards the end of last season.
At least we know they'll beat the Patriots every year when the Patriots travel to Miami.
Well, maybe since Brady's not there anymore, Brady had a lot of trouble going down to Miami, so maybe they'll have better luck without that old quarterback.
We'll get to the Bucks later. All right, Bill, who do you got for number 6 with the Chargers?
So with Tua off the board, I think the Chargers would have liked Tua. I think maybe they entertain the idea of a trade up, but I also don't think they're sold on Herbert as the quarterback. I don't think he has what it takes to be the guy in LA. So I have the Chargers taking Mekhi Becton.
Okay.
Tackle out of Louisville. They have Tyrod Taylor as of now, and I think he can be serviceable for the meantime. And we'll see what happens with him. I know it didn't really work out too well in Cleveland, but you take the shot on the elite level of Becton. I know he might not have the intangibles, but the
size.
He has potential, you can say.
Yeah, I mean, out of all those elite offensive linemen that are probably going to go all in the top 10 or top 15, I think Becton definitely has the highest upside. Just his athleticism at like 355, 360 pounds. He could be so good, like especially in the run game. He's going to just maul people. It's so much fun to watch him on tape for Louisville, just kind of in the ACC, like destroying linebackers, destroying like defensive ends. I would worry a little bit about his footwork, but for his size, he's so athletic. The funniest thing I saw on Twitter the last couple of days, there was a scout for Mekhi Becton who thought he didn't love football. He loves cooking more than football.
I did see that.
So it's like, all right, the guy's 350 pounds. You don't want him to love cooking and eating a lot of food. I just didn't understand that. And I feel like scouts get too caught up in that kind of stuff. because I remember like 5 years ago with Eli Apple, a lot of scouts were downgrading him because he didn't know how to cook. So both ways, it's
You can just
I think people
never find
read into this kind of stuff way too much.
You never know with those talent evaluators.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
Becton,
plus the
gotta love
Chargers
to eat.
traded Russell Okung too. So
that also.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought that was a great trade for the Chargers. Trey Turner out of Carolina. He was one of Dave Gettleman's best picks. He might actually be the best guard in the NFL. I don't really know why the Carolina was giving up on him, but yeah, great trade for the Chargers getting Turner from Carolina.
So who's next? Dave, are you next with the Panthers?
Yeah, I'm the Panthers. So I was a little bit worried for the Panthers that you were going to go Herbert because they do need a quarterback of the future. As you know, Cam Newton is no longer on the Panthers. They signed Teddy Bridgewater, who was good in a backup role last year for New Orleans. But for the Carolina Panthers, Matt Rule, he wants to establish a new era of football, and he's going to take the quarterback with maybe the highest upside in the entire draft, Justin Herbert, who has an incredible arm. He's fast. He's athletic. He didn't always perform the way you would want at Oregon, but the system they had there didn't really suit his strengths. It was a lot like West Coast offense, short passes. I think he could do better in like a downfield passing scheme. They just got Robbie Anderson from the Jets, as you guys already know. But I think he can be a good fit in Carolina. He wouldn't have to start right away because you have Bridgewater there, as the starter for the first year. So I think Herbert would be a good fit in Carolina. I think they'd be happy if he fell number 7.
I like it. Not asking too much of him off the bat. See how he develops. They obviously want to start a new chapter after Cam Newton, and you get a guy like this falling to you. Why not?
Yeah, they could have like the Patrick Mahomes sort of formula where he sits for his first year. He kind of develops under like a good backup quarterback like Mahomes under Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And then you never know the second year. He's very talented. He has such a good arm. I think he was on his knees or something. He threw the ball like 60 or 70 yards, something crazy. But his arm talent, and he's very athletic. I think he had a 4.69 40-yard dash as well. So
No, he was fast. You
high
watched
upside
him in
pick.
Oregon. He was able to escape the pocket, and he was probably more elusive than you'd think he would be.
Had good
Yeah.
plays for sure.
But do you foresee a problem with Bridgewater being there?
No, that's the thing. I think he would be the perfect quarterback, like the really high upside guy that might not do well his first year if he's put under the spotlight and the pressure of starting right away. But if you get him in a system for a year where he could like learn the playbook, learn NFL offense, and I think he would be the perfect guy to sit behind someone like Bridgewater for a year
I mean,
and then be the quarterback in the future.
Bridge is in his name. He's
Yeah, he's just a bridge. He's like the new Tyrod Taylor. He goes around from team to team. And I do think Bridgewater has a chance of being really good if he can stay healthy. He was good last year for the Saints. But that's my pick at number 7.
All right. So for Arizona at number 8, they do need help on the offensive line, but I'm going to make a defensive pick here. I'm going to pick Derek Brown out of Auburn. I think that part of me says that Kingsbury would want to give Kyler Murray some protection, but a lot of people say Derek Brown is a can't-miss defensive tackle prospect. So I'm going to give the Cardinals Derek Brown at number 8.
Yeah, I mean, they always say there's like 4 just elite defensive players in this draft with Simmons, Okudah, of course, Chase Young, and then Brown is in the category of special defensive players. If you watched him last year in Auburn, he was just a beat, like up the middle, like stopping, getting after the quarterback. He's not your typical like defensive run stuffer, and his combine kind of disappointing. So I feel like people are sleeping on him a little bit too much, but he's such an elite talent, like causing chaos in the middle of the defensive line. I think that would be a great pick for him.
Definitely the best player on the field when you watched the Auburn games, but it does bring back memories of Nick Fairley the
Oh,
D tackle from Auburn, who
yeah.
similar intangibles, but didn't really do much in the NFL, which is kind of concerning when you take a guy this high, and that would be my only issue with him.
Yeah, if they have their choice at offensive lineman too. They could go that route, but I went with Brown.
I just doubt he's going to be Aaron Donald. Is my main point. You
Not
can,
many
Yeah,
you can be a run stuffer, but you need sacks in the NFL too.
I feel like this offensive tackle class is so deep as well. You can get like a starting caliber offensive tackle in the second round. So if Arizona defense for their first pick, they might come around and get one of those guys like Isaiah Wilson or Lucas Niang in the second round. Could be a solid, starter for them. So Billy, are you on the clock now?
Jaguars.
Yes, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they could go offensive line here with the 3 of the 4 still on the board, but with trading Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye, I say they go with CJ Henderson, the corner out of Florida. I think he's been rising up draft boards a lot recently, and it just makes a lot of sense for what they're trying to do right now.
Yeah, I like that pick. I actually had my eye on him for a couple of teams in like the teens because, quarterback, and you have pass rusher, offensive tackle. Corner is one of those like premier positions. And if you don't have great cornerbacks, you're going to really struggle. I mean, New England has showed the last couple of years.
We know that.
Oh yeah, with the Tremaine Johnson, I think for the Jets was just released. So yeah, if you have the cornerback position taken care of, you're going to struggle. So I do like that pick a lot for them.
So I think the value of corners has been going up recently, and I think it's a smart move.
So I'm on the clock, or is it Utah?
You're up with Cleveland.
All right. So for Cleveland, I have my choice of 3 offensive tackles. I was actually eyeing Becton for them. I thought he can just fit in right there at left tackle. But I'm going to take the safest tackle in the draft, Jedrick Wills, who I think if I was the Giants and I was going offensive tackle, he'd be my pick for them. But Jedrick Wills, in my opinion, is the best offensive tackle. He only had 1 sack during his time playing for Alabama at right tackle, playing in charge of Tua's blind side because Tua's a lefty. So he did an incredible job. He's a good run blocker as well. He's very polished, like the best technique out of those guys. I feel like he's the safest, especially in pass protection. He's not a mauler the same way that Andrew Thomas or Becton is, but in pass protection, which is what Cleveland really needs because Field's just getting destroyed last. I would go with Willis for the pick for the Browns.
I think safe and stability is the best way to describe it. That's what the Browns are trying to do. And this is
Browns as an organization. I think if Becton is there for the Browns, I feel like that's just the Cleveland Browns pick to me. If Becton was the 10, as you kind of said, I just like kind of envision that happening in my head. But as you know, you watched our video yesterday. Big on Wills. Wish he was there at 11 for the Jets. Good pick.
Yeah, he's definitely like the least flashy out of those offensive linemen. And after last year with Beckham and getting all those star talent players, I think Wills would be the smartest for Cleveland.
Okay.
All right, so you're on the clock, all right, Tom?
Speaking of which, the Jets, I think they have to go O-line here. Wills is off the board. I think they go with Andrew Thomas and plug him in at left tackle. Make Fant play right tackle. I think that Andrew Thomas has a little more polish on him than Wirfs. Wirfs, they're talking about maybe moving him to guard. I think that I like the idea of Andrew Thomas. I think he was probably one of the top O-linemen coming into the college football season, and I think he didn't really do much to disprove that, even though Georgia didn't really have the year they wanted. But I think the Jets picked Thomas there. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah.
He out of the tackles, I think he has the highest floor.
Hmm.
With what Joe Douglas is trying to do, it's the right move. I know it would be sexy to take a wide receiver right here, but you got to protect Sam Darnold. He's the franchise quarterback and still so young, so you can get receivers anytime.
Speaking of sexy, the Las Vegas Raiders up next.
Oh,
Mike Mayock and John Gruden. Who you got, Bill?
So the Raiders never know what they're going to do in the draft. They're Mike Mayock and John Gruden are quite the pairing, but I say they take a stab at another Alabama receiver. Speaking of Amari Cooper, but
Okay.
I say they take Jerry Jeudy with their pick. They need wide receiver help. I think Tyrell Williams and I can't even name the other guys they had. Hunter Renfro and
Renfro.
Darren Wall.
Renfro. It's a beast.
Guys catching passes. So I think Jeudy is the pick.
I like that pick. Part of me feels like the Raiders would take Lamb because he's more flashy, but Al Davis isn't alive anymore. So I think Amari Cooper isn't. I mean, they both went to Alabama, but I don't feel it's an unfair comparison if you're like comparing Jeudy and Cooper. And say what you want about Cooper, he's a productive receiver when he has somebody to throw him the ball.
Amari
Yeah,
Cooper
I
went-
like that comparison. Like, sorry to interrupt, Bill, but like, one of Judy's like main things is like his route running and just getting open. I feel like that's Cooper's specialty too. So I do like that comparison a lot.
I think he's like a top 6 talent in the draft, but just by the needs of the other team, he falls to them at 12.
Yeah, that's a very good value pick, I think, for the Raiders. I'm actually going to go back-to-back receivers out of Alabama for the 13th overall pick, and I am going to pick Henry Ruggs, the speedster, 4.27, fastest receiver from the combine. The 49ers just lost Emmanuel Sanders in free agency. Deebo Samuel, who's a really good receiver, I think he's going to have a great second year for them. But they need that kind of like speed guy on the outside. They were just beaten the Super Bowl by a team that has a bunch of players like Ruggs. So I remember that play on 3rd and 15. This was a play of the game, in my opinion, for the Super Bowl. It was like 3rd and 15. And I thought the game was over. Mahomes scrambles to his left, and like Tyreek Hill somehow gets open on the left side. And you need a playmaker like that. I feel like they were sort of missing that a little bit last year, especially at the end when they fell behind. So I think Ruggs would be a great pick for the 49ers.
They have Kittle for the short stuff and down the middle. The 49ers have about 5 running backs on the roster who can do off-tackle plays. Getting a guy on the outside would definitely help. I mean, Deebo Samuel is very good, but you can never have too many guys like that, and he fits right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like they it's kind of like they had Ruggs in mind when they made the trade. They traded Buckner, who was one of their best like pass rushers last year, to the Colts for this 13th overall pick. And I feel like they do have one of these receivers in mind, like a CeeDee Lamb or a Ruggs, because they are missing that sort of speed element. And they were so good last year on offense, but if they fall behind, they did struggle a bit like they did in the Super Bowl. So I think Ruggs would be a great pick, a great fit for them.
All right. So this next pick, it's me, right? You just went, right, Dave?
Yeah, you're up. Yeah. So
This was probably the toughest pick the toughest choice I had to make, because I'm really not sure in which direction the
are they going to try to protect Brady?
Possibly, and I know Lamb is on the board, but
He'd be a nice weapon on the outside. They have Evans though. They have Evans and Godwin, yeah.
Yeah, they had. I'm going with. my gut here says they do something a little. I never really understand what the Bucks are doing. I'm gonna go with K'Lavon Chaisson out of LSU, the edge rusher. I don't know. I don't really have too much justification with it, but I feel like it could be the first, maybe a little bit of a reach in the draft. I don't know. You guys can give your opinion on that one.
No, they have Shaquille Barrett. Is that the guy?
Yeah, he had a bunch of sacks last year. I was actually eyeing him for the Giants in free agency, but they ended up franchise tagging Barrett. They also have Jason Pierre-Paul, but that's who Chaisson sort of reminds me of. And Pierre-Paul hasn't really been the same since he blew his hand up a little bit in that unfortunate July 4th accident. But like Chaisson, he's super athletic. I don't see him as like an expert pass rusher with his moves or his technique. But that's something I think you could learn at the next level. And he's very quick off the edge. I think he does remind me, JPP went number 15 for the Giants back in, I think it was 2010 or 2011. And Chaisson kind of reminds me of that high upside pass rusher. And you have Brady, you have the receivers. Defense is something the Bucks did struggle with last year.
And since Barrett is tagged, they can draft Chaisson, play both of them, and Pierre-Paul for next year. And if they don't re-sign Barrett, they have a guy to step in right to the other side role.
We know. Yeah. Look at the Eagles from a couple years ago, pass rushers. And they already have good interior linebackers. We know that. They went there, picked Devin White early in the draft last year. I think he's one of the top rising stars in the league. So
yeah, you can never have enough pass rushers. Giants from those Super Bowl teams prove that. You need like plenty of those guys coming off the edge.
All right. So what do we got next? Bill, you're going the Broncos?
Yeah, so the Broncos here.
Going Elway.
Ideal scenario for them. Nobody has taken CD Lamb yet, right?
No. You want me to? No. CD Lamb's still available.
Yeah, I say they have a pretty nice offense shaping up over in Denver with Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Philip Lindsay. They just got Melvin Gordon. Looks like Drew Lock is their guy for now. I say they take CD Lamb and just keep that offense rolling.
I like the pick. I think Lamb's a playmaker. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. I like that pick.
All right, so I'm next on the clock.
16 Falcons. You need me to want me to pull up the who's available?
Yeah, I have someone in mind for them, but I'd like to take a look at it. So for the Falcons, they have all the weapons you would want on offense. They're, Matt Ryan has demonstrated he could take a team to the Super Bowl and almost win a Super Bowl if he has the weapons around him with that MVP season back a couple of years ago. They have struggled big time on defense. I think their biggest need, as it says there, is cornerback. So looking at the corners that are available, I really like CJ Henderson for him, but he's already been taken off the board. So I'm going to go with Christian Fulton, the cornerback out of LSU. He's a big physical receiver, but he also ran the 4.46 40 at the combine. So he has shown enough speed. LSU is dominant. They really did a really impressive job shutting down Clemson in the national title game. So I think Fulton would be the smart pick for the Falcons. They do need help at corner. So he's my guy.
I like that. I think Falcons, new uniforms. I feel like they do have enough weapons on.
What do you think about those uniforms? I'm not a big fan. It reminds me it's a little bit like XFL-ish to me.
Billy said they were growing on him.
Yeah.
You like them?
I hated them when I first saw them, but then saw a couple mock-ups of Todd Gurley with a dark visor wearing 21, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool to see Gurley back in Georgia playing for the Falcons. I think he could have a good bounce back year.
He's only 25 years old, and people are talking like he's pushing 30. I mean, I know he's got the shoes, but
yeah, it seems like he's been in the league for such a long time. You would think he's old already, but he still should be in his prime theoretically. So, all right, so I went. Now it's Dallas, the dreaded Cowboys on the board. My least favorite. For whatever reason, I've always hated Dallas more than the Eagles. Like, I know they're both the big rivals of the Giants, but I just can't stand Dallas.
That's what everybody says. Even the people in Philly, I think they hate Dallas more. Anyway, so
Yeah.
for Dallas, I don't think, knowing Jerry Jones, I don't think that CeeDee Lamb gets past Dallas at 17. I think they would go there if he was on the board. But I'm going to take Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina. Dallas 4-3 defense. They have pretty good linebackers. So I think that you could plug him into the 3 technique, get some pressure in the backfield.
He's similar to Derek Brown by just a disruptor in the middle. And if you watch the highlights from South Carolina, it's pretty impressive what he can do coming up the middle.
Yeah, I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I was like watching a little bit of the Senior Bowl practices when they had offensive defensive line drills. And he was by far the most impressive player at the entire Senior Bowl. He was just dominating. Dallas signed Gerald McCoy in the offseason, and then Dontari Poe, who's kind of like a little bit over the hill, as like he's a good run stuffer. But I think Kinlaw, if you put him in there with McCoy, especially on pass rushing downs, that could be a really solid pick for Dallas. And they have DeMarcus Lawrence on the outside, so their pass rush can be pretty good if they get someone like that.
Okay, Bill, you're up next.
Yeah, so the Dolphins' second pick of the first round. I'm not sure if this guy makes it this far in the actual draft, but I would say taking Tristan Wirfs here would be the best call. Definitely a very good first round player, and he just falls right into their lap here. So you have 3 first round picks. You have to take best player available on at least one of them.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 4.85 40-yard dash at the combine. He's just super athletic. He has experience at guard and center. I mean, not center, but guard and tackle. So he's one of those versatile offensive linemen that you like. He played right tackle and left tackle for Iowa.
And in this
I like that pick.
They already picked Tua, so just you pair your quarterback with an offensive lineman. I think it's a good move.
Iowa linemen, you can't really go wrong with Iowa and Wisconsin linemen. They're just good.
Yeah, and he could theoretically go as high as 4 to the Giants. I've seen him in a lot of mocks going to the Giants. So I don't think he's going to fall that far in the actual draft. But if he did somehow, that would be a great pick right there.
All
right, so I'm on the clock, right?
Raiders up next.
All right, so which team am I? I'm losing track.
Oakland. Oh, I'll share my screen. Hold on.
All right, so this is Oakland's second pick. And with their first pick, they went receiver. So for Oakland, I know they took a safety in the first round last year, but the best safety by many teams' boards is still on the board, and Xavier McKinney. But I'm actually going to not take McKinney and take the safety that I think is the best on the board, and he's actually rising up a lot of mock drafts. And his name is Antoine Winfield Jr.
Ooh.
So big upset. Actually, I did see this by Todd McShay. He had him 19th to the Raiders in his latest mock draft. But yeah, you're going pretty far down there, the big board there. But Antoine Winfield Jr., in my opinion, is the best safety. He made so many plays. He had, I think, 9 interceptions in 2019. His first year healthy. He's just very instinctual. He's able to process plays quickly. I would love if he fell to the Giants somehow in the second round, but for the Raiders, they need some more playmakers on defense. I feel like they have some decent weapons on offense, and the running back Josh Jacobs they took last year was really solid, probably the best rookie in the NFL last year. So on defense, I'm taking Antoine Winfield. I feel like that would be a pick that John Gruden would love. He seems a little bit like a Gruden grinder. So
I was trying to remember Antoine Winfield Sr., and I was just thinking of Dave Winfield, the baseball player.
I think he played football too, didn't he?
I would love to see Dave Winfield's son play football.
Winfield was just one of those like super athletes. Like he just could do everything.
His dad played for what? The Vikings and the Bills, right?
Yeah. His dad was like an all-pro cornerback for for at least like 10, 12 years in the NFL.
I do like that connection that he played for the Vikings and then he played for Minnesota Gophers. So I agree.
Yeah, and I feel like that pedigree definitely makes a difference. You're growing up your whole life around football. You know, you get your dad bouncing ideas off of you, you know, teaching you what to do. So that's got to count for something.
All right, so I'm next for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then this is their second pick in the first round, and they already picked a corner. They already picked Henderson out of Florida. I'm going to keep it in the SEC, and I'm going to keep it in the same position group. I'm going to pick Grant Delpit out of LSU for the Jaguars. I think he's good in coverage. I think he really he really made himself known in the college football playoff. I think he's a really fun to watch player. He may not be the best tackler, but I think that he can work in space pretty well. So I'm going to give the Jaguars Delpit out of LSU.
Yeah, something I've noticed with Delpit was he was used on blitzes a lot for LSU, so you could even like blitz him off the edge. And Jacksonville like needs a lot of help all over their defense. They've lost a lot of players, so I feel like Delpit is someone who has really high upside. I think before last season, he was projected as like a top 10, top 15 sort of pick coming into the 2019 college football season. He struggled a lot with the tackling, like he took bad angles, but supposedly he had a bad ankle injury, so that might have hurt him in that regard. And I just think he's a very high upside player. He's another player I would be targeting for the Giants to fill that free safety spot if he fell to the second round. But for Jacksonville, I think that's a very good pick.
With these late teen, early 20s pick, you see a lot of teams having who already had a selection in the draft having their second selection back here. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see a lot of reaches and needs with they take the best player available up front, then on the back end, try and fill out their roster a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how this falls through.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially towards the end of the first round. You don't see teams always taking the best player available. It would be like great if teams could do that, but it's not always possible. So I think Delpit, he definitely has the upside to be like, you know, in that top half in the first round. So,
okay.
All right. So Billy, you're on the clock right now?
Yeah, the
list or
Philadelphia Eagles. No, I'm good. I've seen this pick in a lot of mocks that I've read. I hear the Eagles are really high on him. It fills a position need, and he had a tremendous season with Joe Burrow last year. And I say the pick is Justin Jefferson out of LSU.
Yeah, he was such a beast in that semifinal game against Oklahoma. I think he had either 4 or 5 touchdowns in that game, 200 yards receiving. Against Clemson in the national title game, unfortunately for me, he just was great out of the slot, making catch after catch. I think he's going to be real solid. What do you think about him, Tom?
The Eagles had pretty much guys off the street playing receiver for them last year. So I think that definitely a position of need for them. I like the pick there.
Yeah, that was the frustrating thing as a Giants fan, watching the Eagles beat us when they had like practice squad players on offense at every receiver position and on the offensive line, and they still were able to drive right down the field on our defense. So I give Carson Wentz a lot of credit. I think Carson Wentz with Jefferson, you know, some better weapons on the inside could really have a bounce back year next year.
Miles Sanders, the 2 tight ends. I think this rounds out their offense pretty well.
Yeah, I think Miles Sanders is really good. He had a good year. He was coming on at the end of last year too.
You're up next with the Vikings, I think, Dave.
Oh, so I'm the Vikings. All right, so
you need the list.
We've been going safeties a lot, and I know they have. They were thinking about possibly trading Anthony Harris. I really wanted the Giants to go after him in free agency, but they gave him the franchise tag. So I'm not going to go safety, even though I think Xavier McKinney could go in this range of the draft. They do have some solid linebackers, but a real high value position, I feel like at this spot, or a value pick, would be Patrick Queen out of LSU. He's someone actually the Giants interviewed recently, which is interesting because I don't think he's going to fall to the second round. So maybe if they do trade back and acquire more picks, they can tag him at the end of this first round. But Patrick Queen is someone that really came on at the end of the season. He has great football instincts. He's like a former running back in high school. He's very athletic. He's a little bit undersized for a middle linebacker, but he held his own up there for LSU. I think this will be a great upside pick, building on the strength of the Vikings, which is their defense. They do need help on the offensive line as well. Kirk Cousins was getting destroyed in the playoff game. But I think Patrick Queen is a really good value pick for the Vikings right there.
There's something to be said about the best players on defense of these national championship teams. You kind of it sets himself up to be selected pretty high in the draft, and Patrick Queen did that, even though I think he got burned on a pretty bad play in the national championship game. But I mean, he's still a first-round pick in my book.
Yeah, I think he ran a 4.51 40-yard dash. So there's a lot of those like uber athletic linebackers in this draft. Besides Patrick Queen, you have like Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma, Willie Gay Jr., who ran in the 4.4 40 range. So I would love for the Giants to get at least one of those guys. If we don't go Simmons in the first round, we definitely need some athleticism at linebacker. But Queen is someone I really like. I think that's a good value right there for the Vikings.
I like the pick. I think he's a perfect 4-3 linebacker for the Vikings.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm up next for the Patriots. So we have to think about the Patriots. What do they do?
What would Belichick do?
What would Belichick do? Belichick picks guys who do a couple things well and maximizes it. I thought Queen and Murray, the linebackers. I think the Patriots would be too small for the Patriots. They usually end up with large linebackers.
Yeah, like a Gerard Mayo. They like those big guys in the middle.
For this pick, I'm picking A.J. Epinesa out of Iowa. I think that he's 6'6", 280. I don't think he's a prototypical edge player, but I think he can play on the edge, play with his hand on the ground if they need him to. The Patriots are only going to ask him to do things that he's able to do and that he's good at. I'm picking Epinesa for the Patriots.
Yeah, that is such a Patriots pick because he was valued really high going into the pre-draft process. He didn't have a great combine. I think he ran over 5 seconds in the 40-yard dash, so he's gone down on people's draft boards. But getting after the passer, he was amazing at that at Iowa, so I feel like that would be a good pick. Belichick can find ways to use him, maybe put him at like the 5 technique or put him inside sometimes on pass rushing downs. But, I think that would be a great pick for the Patriots. That is a very Belichick sort of pick.
Exactly. It's a Patriots pick. He's not the best player, but the Patriots will squeeze every ounce of talent that he has in him and get the most out of that they can. And he'll probably get 11 and a half sacks in 1 year. So
Yeah, I feel like that's Belichick's specialty is finding the strengths of players and just putting them in position. Like Kyle Van Noy was a bust basically for the Lions for a couple of years, and he goes to New England, plays really well. He gets that big contract from Miami, so we'll see how he does over there. But Epinesa, if he was going to go to any team, I think he would want to go to New England to kind of maximize his talents.
Similar player to Van Noy, a short-armed edge rusher.
Yeah, and Epinesa, he just finds ways to get sacks. He doesn't have the super athleticism, but he's real solid.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so is it my pick or is it you, Billy?
It's me with the Saints at 24. So the Saints are kind of in they've been in win now mode for the past few years because you never know when Drew Brees is hanging it up. And as much as I would like to take Jordan Love with this pick, I say they just go corner in A.J. Tyrell out of Clemson.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of Clemson the last couple of years especially. And Tyrell, a lot of people might be down on him by how he played in the national title game. He was kind of burned a few times by Jamar Chase, but out of all those awesome receivers in this draft, Jamar Chase would probably go first if he was eligible this year. And I don't think you could fault Tyrell too much for that. And he did actually stick with him pretty well, especially in the beginning of that game. But I think Tyrell he's a very solid corner. He'd be a very good value in the first round, especially the end of the first round. Clemson's defense was dominating all year. LSU was just like a buzzsaw they couldn't deal with, especially towards the end of the game. So I think, teams shouldn't be faulting him too much for that one performance in the second half of the national title game. It's a good pick.
There's something to be said about SEC defenders like this. They're just at such an elite level compared to other conferences. So I think they're just NFL ready.
Yeah, Clemson their defense has just been so good the last couple of years. They had those three very good defensive linemen at the end of last year who all went in the first round, and this year they're going to have a couple more guys from the defense going in the first round. So Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator over there, just puts guys in the right position, and they always end up performing amazingly well at the combine. They just they develop players really well over there, and you can trust they're going to have solid NFL rookies right at the bat, well coached.
Okay, you're up, Dave? I think next.
All right, so I am
Vikings again.
Minnesota.
Oh, so the Vikings' second pick.
You own it?
Yeah, I mean, let me see the best players available because I was gonna go offensive line with my other pick, but I thought Patrick Queen was too good of a value to pass up. There's so many good offensive tackles in this draft. I remember in the playoff game last year, Kirk Cousins, was getting hit really bad. They did struggle on pass protection for him. So Josh Jones has been getting a lot of buzz for a possible first rounder. I'm going to go with Josh Jones. He was by far the best offensive tackle at the Senior Bowl. He did really well in practices all week. He was dominating in those drills. He's a high upside guy as well. He moves his feet really well for an offensive tackle. I would love if he fell to the second round for the Giants. I might even take him over Antoine Winfield just because we've been struggling at offensive tackle, for so long. For a left tackle, he can slide over to right tackle his first year. But I think he's NFL starter caliber in his first year for the Vikings. That would be a very good pick.
Definitely a good pick for sure. I would like to see the Vikings address wide receiver at one of these positions. I think they have a pretty big hole to fill with Diggs going out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's pretty good wide receivers still on the board, but with 2 late first-round picks, it's hard to mess up when you take premier positions like this.
Yeah, offensive tackle is definitely key, and there are a lot of good receivers in the second round if they wanted to come around. But that's a good point. I think they can't really lose if they go offensive tackle or receiver at this spot because there's going to be great value on the board either way. So.
Jones is the number 5 lineman on the board, and he fell all the way to them, so it's a good pick.
Yeah, I like Josh Jones a lot. I think he's going to be good. He could even start at left tackle, in my opinion, right away. So, all right, who's on the board? Is it Tom?
I have Miami's third pick in the first round. And assuming this guy falls this far, I'm not sure he will. In our draft, the Dolphins have already got their quarterback. They've already picked an offensive lineman. I'm going to end up with 2 Alabama players in the first round. I'm going to give them Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. I think that Dolphins need help everywhere. And this is more of a kind of best player available pick. And I think that I'm going to give him McKinney out of Alabama.
Yeah, a lot of people think he's the best safety in the draft. He's not a true free safety because he ran that 4.6 40-yard dash at the combine. But that's not everything, and people think he plays a lot faster than his combine numbers. And I was actually watching the recent mock draft they had on ESPN, and he was one of the questioners because they had questions from fans. And Xavier McKinney went on. He asked Mel Kiper. He's like, "Why am I not the first safety off the board? I'm the best. If you just watch tape, I'm the best safety." And And Kuiper was like, that's a good point, but I just like Winfield better because he's like a true safety, and he's more of like a free range safety that can play the deep center of the field, and he is a little bit faster than you. But yeah, McKinney, I think he's a good all around player. He can play like in the box, but you can play him once in a while in the deeper zones as well. So that's a very solid pick.
And who's up next?
I got Seahawks.
Seahawks. Do you need the board?
No.
Okay.
But so they lost Clowney, and I always kind of hate the draft picks being replacements for free agent losses. But the Seahawks typically draft pretty well in the later rounds, so they can pick up whatever they want. And after this first round gets over, so I have them taking Yetur Gross-Matos, the defender from Penn State.
I can see that.
So
yeah, I had my eye on him for one of the teams coming up. That's a very good pick.
It's not your kind of traditional player, but Seattle isn't really your most traditional team. So I think they would do something like that.
Yeah, he's got like the perfect build for a edge rusher too. Because when you watch him on tape, he looks kind of skinny, but he's 265, so he's got that like dense. He's solid against the run as well. Penn State, you know, they had Sean Spencer, who's the Giants' defensive line coach over there. So I feel like, you know, he developed his linemen really well. They had a very good pass rush, and yeah, that's like a premier position. They say that the edge rushers in this draft aren't as strong as, you know, in years past, but if you find guys like that at the end of the first round at pass rusher or edge rusher, I think that's a great pick.
And yeah, I think you're up next, Dave. Baltimore.
All right, so for Baltimore, I feel like they always take.
Alabama.
I was thinking about someone from Alabama actually, but I feel like they always take these guys that fall and were just amazing in college. Like Terrell Suggs fell to them. I remember many years ago, and I was just surprised how far he fell, and he ended up being like a Hall of Fame caliber player. But somebody who's been really good on the college football scene for the last few years, and if he fell to this part of the draft, I think would be a great pick for them. And he just seems like a Baltimore Ravens sort of player, is Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma.
Man,
he's going to be here. Yeah, so he's just like, if you watch him on tape, he's so fast. He looks like a safety out there. The way he fills in the hole, like he gets in the backfield, makes tackles for loss. The one kind of fault or weakness in his game would probably be processing plays. But I feel like at Baltimore, they could just kind of like New England, they get the best out of players, and someone with his athleticism, you know, even blitzing up the middle or using him in coverage, he can be a great player for Baltimore. So I think that's their kind of pick, and that's who I would pick for them as well.
Yeah, the kind of guy who just let off the leash and go have him make 120 tackles a season. I think that's the perfect pick.
Yeah, it's just that aggressive defense. Like he seems like he has that aggressive mentality. You know, he's not the best at diagnosing plays, but that's not the kind of defense that Baltimore usually runs, like he said. So I think he would be a good fit right there.
I love that pick. I think Murray's a very good player.
As long as he diagnoses the quarterback's helmet into the ground, that's all Baltimore gets it done.
Yeah, that's all Baltimore needs.
All right, so I have Tennessee coming up at 29. I was going to pick Murray with that last pick, but for this one, I'm going to go with the other Georgia offensive lineman. I'm going to go Isaiah Wilson out of Georgia. Out of a big mauler. Tennessee lost Jack Conklin. I think that needs some help on the offensive line. They want to establish themselves as a run-heavy team with Derrick Henry. I'm going to give him Wilson.
Yeah, they've put a lot of draft capital on the defense these past couple of years, and their team is rolling. So finding a replacement for Jack Conklin just to slip in there and start would be a good decision.
Start at right tackle. He's 6'7", 340. He's almost Mekhi Becton Mekhi Becton height and weight. So
Yeah, he was a more highly regarded recruit than Andrew Thomas coming out of high school. He's a Brooklyn guy, so you don't get many powerhouse football players coming out of New York City. But he's very athletic for his size. I would just worry a little bit about his footwork against like the faster speed rushers, weighing in at 350 pounds. But he's so long, it's hard to run around someone that size. He's going to buy himself some time with his length and his size. So I think that's a really good pick. And he's another player I would eye for the Giants at the bottom of round 2 if he was able to fall.
last one, or Bill, Packers?
Yeah, so Green Bay, they've needed a wide receiver besides Devontae Adams for a while. Last year, DK Metcalf was heavily rumored to be taken by the Packers, but they didn't do it, and it turned out pretty poorly for them. So I say they take wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, and it's Arizona State, I believe.
Okay.
I think he fills a pretty big need. They still have Aaron Rodgers in his prime, so they need weapons besides the ground game for him.
They really have their pick at receiver at this time, or this point in the draft. So they really could go a bunch of ways with it.
Yeah, I was thinking you might say Denzel Mims because he dominated at the combine. But yeah, Ayuk is someone he's like isn't he more of a speed guy as well? So I think that can be a solid pick.
Mims can easily go in these like 20 to 30 late first round picks.
Yeah, this is such a deep receiver class. I could definitely see them taking like a really solid receiver at the end of the first round. Ayuk is definitely. He's someone that's been climbing up during the draft process, a lot of people's boards. So that's a good pick. All right, so I'm on the clock, right, for the 49ers?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so with their next pick, last year, I think the thing that put the 49ers over the top, and it's not rocket science by saying this, but Bosa, just adding him to that defense was such a difference maker for them. They already had a lot of these like top 10 picks on their defensive line, and they had Richard Sherman in the secondary. They have a lot of very good players on defense. Fred Warner was a really good linebacker for them last year. But I'm going to go with Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. And he recently came out with a diluted sample, so he tested positive for something. He said he drank too much water trying to make a weight at the combine. But I really don't think that's going to hurt his draft stock. In my opinion, he might be the second best pass rusher in this draft after Chase Young. He doesn't have the size. There's been talk of him possibly moving to a off-the-ball linebacker like Anthony Barr did for the Vikings because he does lack the size you would want for an edge rusher. But for San Francisco, they don't even need him to start right away. They're such a good team. They can use him as like a situational pass rusher. He's also very good in coverage. He can move his feet. But I really like him out of Wisconsin. Another player I would kind of look out for the Giants if he did fall to 36, but I don't think he's going to fall that far, even with the sample that he got tested positive for in the last couple of days. I think Zach Bond would be great for San Francisco.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some talent in the early first round. They say the first pick of the second round is sometimes even more valuable than the last couple of the first round because you have a whole day to reevaluate your draft board and decide on who to take there.
Yeah, especially with this draft, with like the the virtual draft that they're doing, it's going to probably be a little more chaotic than what's been going on the last couple of years, where everyone's in a draft room together and you can like figure things out much more quickly.
Yeah, do you think that will cause like less trades with the?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that too, and I'm worried about Dave Gettleman because he doesn't seem like the most technologically savvy kind of guy with the draft, but I'm sure I'll figure it out over the phone with people. I think, I was thinking there would probably be less trades because I could see trades being like such a complex thing. You would need, your capologist and all these different moving pieces to kind of come together to make, and especially in the first round when so many things are happening. So I do think there'll be less trades than usual, but you never know.
You have to be on the phone with like multiple teams to try and figure out who's going to be in your new draft position. So it just sounds like a nightmare to
Yeah, and they're going to be on Zoom like we are right now, and they're going to be worried about people hacking into their meetings and stuff. It's going to be kind of stressful, I'm sure, trying to make a trade like that.
So,
All right, so Tom, you're the last pick, right?
last pick of the first round. I wasn't sure in which direction the Chiefs were going to go for this pick, but they could go do something flashy and draft a running back. I can kind of see that happening. There's pretty much, I don't think any of us have picked a running back this whole draft, so they could pick Taylor, they could pick Edwards-Helaire, they could pick Dobbins. I'm gonna go the unsexy pick. I'm gonna give them Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan.
I like that pick a lot. Yeah.
Last pick of the first round. You can never have too much protection for Patrick Mahomes. They have a couple good tackles on the outside. Shore up the inside and let it keep rolling with their high-powered offense.
Yeah, I like that a lot. He was one of the players that I wrote on gmenhq.com, like second-round targets the Giants should be looking at. And Cesar Ruiz, I don't think he's going to fall to them in the second round, but he's considered the best center in the draft. He's strong. He has a good anchor. He doesn't get pushed back too much in pass protection. So I feel like that would be a good pick for the Chiefs. They always have great offensive lines. And, with Mahomes and their high-powered attack, you want to focus on your strengths like they usually do in the draft.
I read a couple articles saying the Chiefs should just take one of these late first-round receivers, like whoever falls to them, just based on the fact that their offense is just so much better than any other teams in the NFL right now. And just don't take your foot off the gas. Just don't let other teams catch up to you. And I think that's a pretty interesting way to look at like this new NFL with like the Chiefs offense like leading the charge.
Yeah, that's what Tom was telling me yesterday. You had that kind of the theory about just building on your strength, not always worrying about like a weakness, like maybe you need some defensive line help. But yeah, their strength obviously is passing the ball downfield, beating people with speed. So just building on that, like if someone like Henry Ruggs fell to them at the end of the first round, that would just be unfair to go against him and Tyreek Hill and McCall Hardman, all guys that can run like in the 4.27 range in the 40-yard dash. I think that's a good point.
Who cares who's playing D tackle or safety on defense if your team's scoring 42 points a game?
Yeah.
It's not going to matter.
Yeah, and you have by far the best, like the most talented arm in the NFL. You can just throw the ball all over the field. So you got to take advantage of that and surround them with weapons. I could see the Chiefs going receiver with this pick, but yeah, I think Ruiz is a very good value as well. Like if he fell, I think Dallas might be looking at him too, because Travis Frederick retired this season kind of unexpectedly. So yeah, center is definitely an underrated position on the offensive line. That's someone the Giants definitely need a center. If they can find one of these okay centers that can start for them, that would be huge. So yeah, this is our draft. Do you guys have a favorite like value pick?
Let's see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, I could see.
I was really gunning for Murray at the end of that first round before
that was
you guys stole him from me. I think that was a very good pick.
I liked my CD Lamb to the Broncos.
I was gonna say I like that pick as well. I can see.
Yeah, Drew Lock needs that like number one receiver that can grow with, and yeah, they have Pat Shurmur, the ex-Giants coach, as their offensive coordinator now, and he's a much better offensive coordinator than he would be a head coach. So I feel like he can do a lot of cool things with CD Lamb, and Locke had very good end of the season last year, so it's a solid pick for them.
Mm-hmm.
Does it show who's like the best players available? Let's see if we missed out on somebody.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. If there's some,
it's already in like review.
Oh, it's like finished. It's in the review. Yeah. I think I like that Cesar Ruiz pick a lot. He's someone I was thinking about for a bunch of teams, but yeah, for the Chiefs, that would be a great value at the end of the first round.
I think we nailed the teams pretty well.
The teens are
Yeah.
where things get crazy, and it's like you were saying before. It's so there's a lot of teams having 2 picks, so it really things could get really crazy.
It's just so tough to judge how they base their needs in terms of best player available and reach for. I think it's like 4 different teams have multiple first round picks in that area.
The second and third rounds are going to be just as interesting as the first round, considering the running backs and the receivers that are going to get drafted. I think.
Yeah. Could you guys foresee like Miami doing something crazy because they have so many picks and like doing like a Godfather offer to Cincinnati to try to get Joe Burrow, or maybe trading up to 2 or 3 if they really like 2 or something like that?
I can't see them trading for 1 unless they give them like those 2 other picks. Which
If they gave them all their first round picks, do you think Cincinnati would consider that? Or they just go with
You have to consider it, but I don't know if they would do it.
3 first round picks and like a 2 next year. I don't know what it converts out to.
Yeah. If I'm Cincinnati, I would definitely consider, like, imagine your rebuild if you could get Tua with that number 5 pick and then draft some of these, like one of those great receivers, another offensive tackle. That can really accelerate their rebuild. But yeah, that was a solid draft, solid mock.
That was good. I think we did a good job. We can't have the video go on for too long, or else the file size will be crazy.
Yeah, it's probably, I'm not gonna be able to save it on my computer. I'll start deleting stuff.
Maybe save it to the cloud or something.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching our annual mock draft that we doing for the first time this year. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Signing off. Good job.